The most recent FNAF games introduce a new way to deal with the animatronics that isn't just closing the doors on them. And with nearly 3 games in a row with this system, I wanted to see just how quickly I could deal with all of them, especially if I use as many legacy glitches as possible. The first of these games being Security Breach. Security Breach has a staggering 4 animatronics to kill, including Freddy, and first on my agenda is Roxy, which will make sense in a minute, but before I get anywhere near killing her, the first place I'm going to be heading to is just outside Feather Blast, so I can set where I land after falling out of bounds, which I can get to by climbing this curtain that for some reason deloads the game. And then using some platforming and parkouring, we can enter Feather Blast without the party pass, meaning we can get a security badge and the bowling pass for later on. You may now be able to tell why we're going for Roxy first, as it's right next to where I am. So after a string of Freddy deloads, which happen when jumping before entering Freddy, we can enter the raceway. And while normally you would have to go through a whole arcade section to get the head repaired, if you just walk along this track, the fight will trigger, which will just kill Roxy. With Roxy now defeated, we run into a bit of a problem. The normal way we exit this area is through this vent, which requires a screwdriver, which we don't have. So instead, I'm going to have to try and Freddy deload out without soft locking myself. For my next target, I've chosen Monty, so the next place I need to head to is just outside the atrium, so I can not only get the screwdriver for the vent, but also the massive size control card, which is in the theatre, which is in the daycare. And as we don't have level 2 security, the only way we can enter is by going out of bounds, and while I don't know how it works, if we get jump scared by this out of bounds map bot, it for some reason just puts us out of bounds. With the control card and screwdriver both in my inventory, and with us also back in the atrium, we can get Freddy to push us past this invisible wall that's blocking us and activate the maze, so we could just spam jump in this corner to get to the vent. Now while the Monty fight would be difficult to do legit, if you get onto this handrail and sprint jump onto the arena, he just won't spawn unless you walk backwards. After getting a couple of items and leaving Monty Golf, the last animatronic we need to kill before the ending is Chica, who resides in the kitchen. Before we can actually kill her, however, we need the Monty mystery mix that can be accessed through the bowling, which is why we even got the pass in the first place. But with that, we now need to get down to the kitchen, which is a completely different story to anything else, because normally it would be a decently long journey to head there, but instead, to make it much quicker, we're going to be using the same mapbot clip as before, because the kitchen is basically right below the Freddy statue, meaning after some lucky placement and movement and a couple of Freddy clips, we can kill Chica and be pushed right into Trashland, which contains the hardest part of the run. This is going to be difficult now. We've done the easy part. To go from Trashland to the Vanny fight, we need to scale this handrail as we can use it to go out of bounds, and as falling into the void sends us back to our save station, which is right outside of Feather Blast, we can blindly move to just outside its bounds, where we can then jump to here and walk off to hopefully land in a place where we can access Vanny. I did it. Oh, is the cat showing up on the gate? I don't know. With security breach completed, it's on to Ruin. Ruin has a total of 1 animatronic that I need to kill, which is Monty around halfway through the game. And as Ruin is chapter based, the only thing we can really do to kill him as quickly as possible is by speedrunning the around 5 chapters before his demise. One thing this run relies heavily on are wedge jumps, which are done by wedging yourself into a corner, and that just lets you keep on jumping. This first wedge jump was used for me to get on top of this vent, which just means it's much quicker than just crawling through it. The first chapter, which we just entered, is perfect to show off more wedge jumps, using one to skip getting the mask, using another to get on top of this tunnel, which in turn skips the start of the chapter, and using one to skip unlocking this door. Another thing we do a decent amount is tricking the game into thinking we're stuck, which means after taking the mask on and off, we can rise through the roof, which is used in this section to skip the rest of the chapter. Behind this TV is daycare, which is a major time sink. But if we wedge jump and put on our mask, after a bit of difficult platforming, we can skip right from daycare to the theatre. And if we jump through this TV, which has no collision, we can skip right to the Monty section. There we are. The Monty boss fight area is the only place I didn't really learn any skips for and did completely legit, so let's just skim through that quickly. Here we are. Chica's kitchen probably contains the hardest trick in this run, which comes just after this wedge jump that teleports us to the higher floor. We need to parkour on top of this vent and to this random flooring, and basically at this point just throw ourselves through the void and hope for the best to land where we want to. Oh, we did it. We did it. The purple area is one of the final areas, which gives me a small bit of time to relax, and once we get to the start of Roxy's Raceway, we can rise up by getting stuck again, and after walking up this slope, we can get right back into bounds and reach Monty, which after skipping his spawn trigger, means we can easily kill him, giving us a time of just above 36 minutes. It's a bit above 40 minutes, but I'm really happy with that. Now for the final game, Secret of the Mimic. Secret of the Mimic, like Ruin, only has a single animatronic that actually dies, as we see the Mimic in the end of Ruin, and it leaves Dolly before we squash it. So again, like Ruin, we're just going to be mostly speeding through the game using as many glitches as we can. The first and most major of which will come up just after the manager's office. When we get to the manager's office, we in a normal playthrough would find this jack-in-the-box, which once we wind up would give us a crank and lead us into a room, which after using the generator would be invaded by the Mimic, which starts the first chase. This would bring us back to our office, where we would reset the welcome show we sat through at the start, so we can enter the front doors, which also broke in that first show. We then repair an elevator and can finally enter the big top showroom. Instead, one of the most well-known glitches in this game is quantum levering, which consists of us using a lever or crank while we move away. And if we do this for the jack-in-the-box, we can wind it up while we head back to the manager's office, which in the end causes us to be warped back to the jack-in-the-box and for some reason gives us 0 gravity. We can then crouch on the objects around us to gain as much height as we can, and once we get high enough, everything will deload. And as our next upgrade is in the big top showroom, we can fly over to this cone light because that is very luckily the showroom. Once we're here, we need to make sure we get through this gap quick enough, because if not, the curtain will load in and will block us from progressing, meaning we just have to redo that whole section. We then need to head back to the elevator and reload so the showroom activates. And while our next upgrade is here, it's on the second floor, which is normally achieved by completing every game and getting the grand prize. Instead, if we shoot this ball gun at our feet, eventually we'll fly to the second floor so we can get this next upgrade. Our fifth upgrade resides in the doll hospital, which is thankfully right below the showroom, but normally we'd head to the roof after getting chased through different rooms by Big Top, and once he falls or gets knocked out or whatever happens, we need to head to the warehouse, which is one of the longest areas because we have to build a mascot costume so we can actually head to the theatre. And after the performance we control, it ends up collapsing, which is when we land in the doll's hospital. For my run, if we get onto this podium or standing and looking in a similar place to me and shooting, we can fly onto these metal beams, which after we set our FPS to 30 and walking up, means the game completely deloads, so we could just fall right into the hospital if it doesn't crash. Oh my god. Crashed. But once we are on the same level, we need to make sure we walk through these doors while they're unloaded, unless we want to get completely hard locked. With the fifth upgrade acquired, we can use the rats instead of the trash and head down to the pit of lava, which is for some reason here, and toss Dolly into it. We can nearly completely skip this chase using quantum levering to get on top of this elevator and then running over this handrail. We had to head to the elevator the legit way because I missed a skip, but then after completing the elevator, we can head to the final section of the game. Slight time save here.
Oh, right.
Skipping the warehouse is quite easy if you know how to do it right, as by going in and out of a locker and getting stuck in it, we can crouch to rise up, then we can crouch onto this box and run along this cutout to reach the gate, but I didn't know when to crouch so I failed quite a bit. Either way, after a bit of parkouring we can reach the admin wing. Okay, we did it. This bit mostly just skips me getting a lot of different puzzle pieces and then completing the puzzle we've been doing the rest of the game, so it just saves a bit of time. We can completely skip the cupcake section by doing another locker clip, which means we can get our sixth and final upgrade. After stealing the Mimic blueprints and dying a lot in the final section... Why did he just fall down like that? I don't know where I'm going. We can head back to the office and start the parachute ending, meaning we can finally kill Big Top. Time 52:51. Just a bit less than 53 minutes. I'm happy with that. The final times for each of the games are on the screen now, with the combined times of them being 2 hours, 9 minutes, 58 seconds and 54 frames, meaning it was literally just a couple frames over 1 second away from not being sub 210, which is crazy to me, but I'm also very proud of it. And as there isn't really any leaderboard for this type of run, you can either put any times you get in the comments or in my Discord, which is in the description. But other than that, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe.